Hello and welcome back to another episode of Supercoach Insider. My name is Ben.
And I'm Chris.
I'm Swizz.
And thank you for joining us. It's the absolute anarchy season, ladies and gentlemen. Some premiums have fallen and other premiums are shit like Max Holmes. Welcome to the podcast. We have a lot to
18
discuss.
seconds.
Last man standing. And no matter what you say, some things just can't be justified. Swizz, good to have you on.
Oh, thanks, Ben. Good to be here, mate. You know, actually, on all seriousness, it is the Sir Doug Nicholls round, which is always close to my heart because of the time I spent in Northern Territory. So, fantastic week, big match, dream time, all the other games, the jerseys. You know, it's going to be a fantastic round. So that's as serious as I'm about to get on this podcast because, yeah, we'll start dishing out stuff in a moment. Actually, I'll just start off and say Holmes at least, mate. Maxi Holmes is still standing. Every other prick that we put up last week is 6 weeks injured or got, some sort of weird friggin' injury or who knows what. But at least Maxi is still standing.
I actually managed to dodge most of the bullets last week.
Prick.
I had people messaging me, Chris, saying, did he go there? And I was just like, well, he's a dirty bastard, so can you be more specific?
Actually, I have a story time. So I was actually at the races over the weekend and a fan came up and introduced himself. And I think my memory may deceive me, but shout out to Colin if Colin's there. I believe his name is. And he came up to me and he's like, aren't you on a diet?
Yeah.
he literally, which is true. So I was listening on a challenge and I was at the races and this was booked like months in advance.
So you're having sodas or what? You're going beers and just like...
Nah, this is a cheat day for sure. Dude, it started because it was all fully sponsored. It was like a race day from the client at work. So yeah, like it was like, and they just kept bringing out more food. And I'm like, I'll have like one of everything. But I didn't realize they would bring up like 20 dishes, like all different stuff. And then it was obviously like free beer and wine. And I'm like, I rock up and I'm like, oh, maybe I can stick to the sugar-free alcohol. Babao, no sugar-free alcohol at all. It was only beer and wine. I was like, oh, so I stick to these like hard super dries, like low-cal beers. But like, I don't like lager. So I ended up switching to the ale. So about an hour in, I'm like, well, today's a write-off, guys. Let's just go have some fun.
That's so funny. It's like you're out cheating, like as in cheating on your diet, and then someone's just like, hey, aren't you that guy that records podcasts? And B, aren't you also meant to be on a diet? That's so funny.
Yeah, so he actually it was quite funny. So because I'm lining up to get a drink, and he's like, "Hey, aren't you that guy on the podcast on the Supercoach show?" And I'm like, "What are you talking about?" I literally was like, "What? Like seriously? Like I don't know what you're talking about." Because it's the first time it's like happened like in public, where it wasn't like at the football or something. It was like completely random. Like I would never expect someone to run into me and say that.
We're hidden up here. It's not like people will hear Swizz's voice on the trains and like, "Hey, Swizz," and Swizz is very recognizable. You've already heard the story. Spiller, who has his own YouTube channel, is the only one that recognized me, and it was in a urinal at the Gold Coast preseason game, watching Rail and Anderson before they'd played a game. Went and checked them out to see if they were worth options, and I said to you, Chris, that day, I was like, Matty Rao, bring him in your side. Spiller, I was taking a piss, and he's like, Supercoach Insider, as I was taking a piss.
Well, I've been invited to a high school to come talk to them. They're, what do you call it? What do they do? Like multimedia team or multimedia students and stuff like that. They wanted a local podcast person and, invite me down, have a chat and stuff like that. So,
were they like, oh, well, he's already
I haven't done it yet. I haven't done it.
So the year awards. Yeah, now let's give him a community award.
That's right. That's right. So let's go in there and hopefully we'll pick up some listeners.
Yeah, be like some citizenship community award. It's like, hey kids, this is like gambling kind of but stock market highs and lows, simple maths guys, just straight up and down. And whatever you do, Max Holmes is a shit pick.
Anyway, we digress.
Fit bodies, mate. That's all it's about.
Warm bodies on the field is basically how we're winning.
Chris, before we do so, Swizz, remember the comment. He's not going to make enough cash. That's already been proven because his shit score of 59, and he's not going to average enough, which with that score in his cycle now, Swizz, I don't know what he has to average to go 105
to
plus.
To be fair, like the guy was best on ground to quarter time, but we forgot about one thing. We forgot about Taranto Goat. Went to him and just dominated.
Yeah, so he has a shit roll then, is what you're saying. Because if they're that depleted, it's Dangerfield's not helping, mate. Holmes.
He just butchered the footy a bit. That's all.
Yeah, And mate, no one's beating Taranto this year. The guy could win the Brownlow. If we start winning games, let's just get on it. Get on it now.
The guy could win the Brownlow.
Okay, let's digress.
Dacos gets injured. Toronto.
Oh, mate, that is
Dacos gets injured.
Ladbrokes just went cha-ching, free money, boys.
And then everybody gets suspended.
Like, oh my gosh!
It's that
Simpsons
episode where the we've gone to diet beer. Was it diet beer or something? Beer, no alcoholic beer. They're out of business. Here we go, boys. Get on.
All right, so this is, I already said before today to these boys in the chat, I said, all right, I'm not doing 2.5 hours, ladies and gentlemen. I said, consider me Nicolas Cage. This is gone in 60 minutes because I cannot do a 2.5 hour marathon again. Some people were upset, and then people told them to go shove it because they're like, I love the long
That person was you. That person was you, Ben.
Somebody actually literally did. So I was like, oh, can you bring it down? So I was like, fuck off. I've got a 2-hour drive ahead of me. I want to listen to the boys. I'm like, brilliant.
Or it's like, can you cut it back? I'm like, dude, I am not editing 2.5 hours. No. I do not have time. It's how Chris likes it, just raw and unedited.
As you do. Well, sometimes you go in. No, I'm not going to go there. Okay, all right.
Yes.
Okay, so rookies. Gentlemen,
let's start on the rookies.
Should we start with the bad ones?
I mean, they're all bad, really. So I think we should probably highlight that this week is if you thought last week's rookies were bad, you didn't think that this week's rookies could be even worse. That's what we're facing. And unfortunately, the problem's really compounded because Drury went and shut the bed. So anyone that was looking to hold out for and not bring him in probably made the right call. But also now it's like, who else are you getting? I suppose we're all in the same boat because you're probably not bringing in Drury now if you didn't already bring him in. I think someone told me today that over 50% of the top 1% Supercoaches brought in Drury, which is just remarkable.
Well, obviously that's not me. I mean,
yeah, so you wouldn't know what that's like, buddy.
Yeah.
But us in the top 1,000 over here. Oh, did you make the top 1,000 this week, Swizz?
No, but it's on the top 1%.
Oh, okay. Well, me in the top 1,000.
Well, top 1% is all that matters, bro.
Anyway, yeah. So it hasn't got better. Unfortunately, it's got remarkably worse because there really isn't. All of the rookies generally have something wrong with them, whether it's price or job security or scoring potential or a combination of all three of those. And so I suppose we want to go through the best trading options as best as we can. So I'll start with Humphrey, which is the one that I'm bringing in this week. And I suppose, look, I want to start this off by saying two things. First of all, I was very much against the Rory Atkins pick because you're paying virtually the same price that you're paying Atkins. But for me, I feel like Rory Atkins had really bad job security. Whereas I feel the opposite about Humphrey. So when you're paying up for him, you're paying up because of the job security that he has. Gold Coast have obviously declared through with the way that they're playing him that doesn't matter if you score -3, we're going to play you anyway. They obviously want to pump as many games as they can into him. Yeah, top 10 draft pick, AFL ready body. This week, he obviously pumped out 117, which has helped a lot. But he went down before he's come back up. So he's only gone up about 20K, I think, or 25K in his total starting
28
price.
From his first starting price, yep.
So he's still relatively affordable. He has the highest break even, which means that he's obviously due to make the most money if he can get some scores. But then if you look at his scoring history, then that's a bit of a worry. So I think he went like 39, 38, -3, and then he started.
But he was also subbed 64. Out of some of those lower games as well. So
his time on ground was crap because he was the sub twice to come on, and he was subbed out as well. So even those games where he had like 42%, 48%, two of those he was the sub.
So Chris, what's changed for the ladies and gentlemen that might not have any idea?
The biggest thing is his role. So in those first two, if you guys, I don't know if you guys are aware of a website called dfsaustralia.com. I think it's just .com. Just head on down to Bailey Humphrey's page, and on the right hand side you can see his heat map. And what I really love about DFS is you can see his heat map relative to the previous weeks all in one little slide. So I'm just bringing it up now. And if you notice for the games, for the first 3 games, he played a lot of time forward on all those heat maps. And so that's what you see, large chunks of red, which indicates a lot of forward time. And then it flipped 2 weeks ago. So his role's actually changed to more of a half forward flank, pushing into the midfield. So that Flanders role and obviously he wasn't even playing this week. And
yeah, Flanders got dropped and did pretty well, I think, in the seconds.
Yeah. So he's playing a guy that pushes up around the stoppage. He actually also got 17% CBAs last week. Now, there's a little bit of a theory, which is probably relatively true, that he only got those CBAs because they're playing West Coast, and it was obviously a easier midfield to be able to do that in. And he has some hard matchups. The next 3 weeks aren't easy. So I suppose there's good points and then there's counterpoints. And where you sit in that, anyone's guess. The good news is if he does score relatively decent this week, he's going to make some good cash straight away. So this week's really important to make sure that he spurs that cash gen on. If he shits the bed this week, you might be stuck with a rookie only averaging, say, 45, 50 or whatever it might be for the foreseeable future for at least the next 3 weeks. But I just see him as a guy. He's the only guy that I can see that's not even on the bubble, but as a trade-in target that I can see playing all the way through the buys as long as he doesn't get injured. Everybody else, massive question marks on their job security, massive question marks on the cash gen ability, and I'm just not sold on any of them. The fact that Drury shut the bed, and I suppose we'll touch on that a little bit later, so it just gives me a little bit of confidence going, okay, well, he got 17. Best case scenario, he comes out and goes 50, 60 this week, and then I pick him up next week for 120K. Like, okay, that's not the worst case, right? So, to me, I like the Humphrey pick. The bad thing, of course, is his price as well. So you got to take that into consideration. But for me, he's the one that's coming into my team. What about you guys?
Yeah, he's the only one that I'm really looking at. I know there's Sharp there, but it was the same thing with Nevitt last week, and I thought he played quite well in that game, but just the amount of players that are going to come back from Geelong, Brisbane with Sharp, it's just so hard to pick. North Melbourne even have a single that they're going to make changes this week, and it looks like George Wardlaw will make his debut finally. And I believe maybe Taron Thomas comes into that side as well. So, they're definitely looking at making changes because they're underperforming. So, does Jury hold his spot? Does he miss for a week, come back after that? It just fills me with no confidence in anyone else. So outside of maybe Wardlaw in the future, which is going to be a really expensive rookie if we go there, Humphrey's the only one that I see, as you said, that looks like having decent job security. And we need somebody who's going to play through the buys, and he's got the perfect buy. So he's the obvious one, Benny.
Yeah, look, I'm still trying to free up cash, but the thing that I'm going to is I would love some Tuke Miller talk. As in, hey, tell me he's out for 5 weeks, because it also coincided with his role improving, has coincided with Tuke being out. So just change the magnets a little bit. He then, is able to push up the ground and then get some more CBAs. I think he had like 19% CBAs or something or other as well. So that's where I'm kind of leaning. If they say he's out for a month or 5 weeks or whatever, and it covers the buys, then I think there's definitely a lot more value there to be had. I also feel like Drury's kind of the one, if he gets named this week, I do share your consideration there, Chris. I think his break even's 20, so low enough. Whereas if he scores 25, he's only going up a smidge. So it's not going to be completely unreasonable. So I think if he scores a 25, he's going up 15K. So it's about 5K for every 10 after that. So if he goes 55, he's going up about 25K. So 125, again, not the worst thing in the world. So I do share your reservations there. As far as being able to bring him in, Aaron Hall also tailed up, I think, as far as possessions in the VFL as well. So there's some consideration as to whether they bring Aaron Hall back as well. So that's kind of where I sit. I just did my team reveal and I didn't even mention Humphrey. So I'll wait and see how teams are announced. I'll wait and see how Tuke Miller talk comes out. But anyone who scores a -3 is a big red flag for me. Teams can sell me, and I know that his role has improved the last couple of weeks, but I want to hear some Tuke Miller talk, and I want to see teams, and then I'll probably look at if there's room for him, Chris.
So just on that, Bailey Humphrey just won the Rising Star, and he had a talk. Sorry, what? Hello?
Sorry, you had the earphone and yes, Chris, the news has just come in.
Yes.
Oh, okay, cool. Yes, breaking news.
Bruce Almighty, and he's just like this. They've just won the Stanley Cup.
I do. So he just had an interview where he talked about his role and how they actually played him deep forward in the first few weeks, and he just wasn't really that's not something he's used to because he's used to playing mid that goes forward, and so like that's what his role was in juniors. Obviously, a mid that can go pinch hit forward. So he's still even adjusting to the half forward flanker that gets up around the ball, but he said that that's much more natural to him. And that's really what's happened the last couple of weeks and why he's been able to produce such good results. So he even talked about the role change. So it's not like I'm making this up and just looking at a graph that says that that's what's happened. He's actually physically said that that's what's happened. So just the club's selling you on that. He's selling you on that. And so it's not just me. But I did actually tweet Michael Whiting today, and I haven't heard back yet. I asked him for a Tuke Miller update because obviously we haven't had any. Literally, and if you go on the Gold Coast Suns website, they haven't had an update on Tuke Miller since the week he actually got injured. At that time, they said short to medium. Now, someone said to me today that apparently Stuart Dew was on SEN, and he said that it'll be definitely after the bye, and it could be even like back end of the year, which is after the bye. So I don't know how to take that, but it could be later because obviously, and there was surgery involved apparently. On Tuke Miller's Instagram page, he actually tweeted, Instagrammed about it. So, I don't know. Like with surgeries only takes you out of sport for 2 to 4 weeks anyway, and then it's just about the rehabilitation from that surgery. So, it's 3 to 4 weeks would be normal. 4 to 6 weeks maybe would be around the bye. Over that, you're looking at 6 to 8 weeks for a meniscus tear. Like that's not. Is that normal?
Unless it was pretty nasty and the surgery had to fix a little more than they were expecting. But again, no news.
And again, no news, which is
Gold
odd,
Coast. No
very
news.
odd
Like,
from clubs.
well, it's like Wits when Wits are like, oh, he's a tester, but then we found out that he had like a fractured back. It's like, cool, thanks for that news. You know?
And that was the thing. Like when I was talking to Heater, and Heater was like, yeah, nothing even coming out from my brother about it. Like
could you text Heater because you guys are good mates now?
Yeah,
could you text him and be like, hey, buddy?
Reese is giving him nothing either. It's like nothing is coming out of that team at all. Like the Suns are just in lockdown with their news, which, a lot of other, there's talk about they want clubs to be more friendly like the American sports and everything's just out there. And some clubs here just give us absolutely nothing, which the Suns clearly are doing.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it would be nice to get that Raul information because it does make Anderson and Raul much more pertinent. And had I known that Tuke was out for 10 weeks, then Anderson and Raul I would have traded in 2 weeks ago. You know what I mean? Like that's just super annoying. But whatever. I digress. Other rookies.
The only other counterpoint about Humphreys is they did play West Coast, and that's like, and all the Gold Coast scores were through the roof outside of Anderson, which is funny in itself. So that that will definitely come back. But
and next three are Brisbane, Bulldogs, Adelaide. Actually, next 4
Bulldogs in Adelaide.
Yeah, and then bye, and then Carlton and Hawthorn in their last game of the buys.
The last bye, which is probably the one that's loaded with a whole bunch of players, so he could be very good against Hawks. Hopefully, that last round.
Yeah, that'd be handy.
So it could be good. Moving on to my boy at home. That's also well adjusted. A little bit surprised Gold Coast aren't even playing one of their Northern Territory games this round. That would have been much more beneficial, I think, than the Q Clash. But that's just me, Swizz.
Well, they got the double header leading into the bye.
That's what I mean. I was like, why not just do one this week?
The whole AFL fixture just frustrates me so much.
But I think they also wear their Indigenous Guernsey during their Northern Territory round anyway.
They do. And it seems to become the jumper for 3 or 4 weeks now, and that, which I get where some people, there's the balance on this and that. I'm like, does it devalue this particular round? But shouldn't this round have a game in Cairns, Darwin? You've got the Dreamtime as the big game. And then I can understand them spreading some of the games around the country. But they could fixture this so much better.
Well, some people have rational thoughts and other people are president of Hawthorn. So there you go. I don't know if you heard his comments this week, dude. Like, as in after Clarko sold him under the bus, as in like, hey, do an investigation into them. And then Kennett just runs his mouth again saying, like if
some people need to learn to shut up.
Dude, he's like, people booed this person. Is that racist? No, like blah, blah, blah. And just started going on saying, pretty much 2 agendas. And then I was like, dude, I
think people need to pay as much attention to Jeff Kennett as they do to Sam Newman, which is just basically he talks and everyone else just goes, just shut up, Sam.
Yeah.
Leave that one through the
Anyway,
keeper.
I thought you were going to say Corns. Yeah, Harry
so
Sharp's the next one. My boy, we'll talk about him,
yes,
123K,
thank you.
900. I've been asked a lot about him. People saying, oh, he's a Brisbane player. Now, let's go about the characteristics of Sharp first of all. He is the fittest one at the club, runs the best times, and I think he was almost on track to be a prolific runner. So you kind of consider the running ability of like Blixhalves, Blixhalves or whatever. I don't even know how you say that, Chris. You probably don't either. Swizz, how do you say
me, mate.
Blixhalves, Blixhalves?
I got
So,
halves.
but yeah, prolific runner, best time trials there. He's actually put a little bit of size as well. So he's someone who got drafted, was still in high school while he was kind of playing and debuting. And it's been a little bit of a slow build up. So he was someone I considered that should have probably been the sub for a lot of the start of this year because he can just come out and run really good time trials, really good times to just take the game on. What I will say is the benefit of having him in the team though. So you put him with say Wilmot, with like McKenna and Zach Bailey and a whole bunch of these other dynamic players. They actually look really fast through the middle of the field now. Fast in transition to take it forward as in their run and carry, or just actually closing speed as well to shut the team up. So I do like what he brings, but the big key thing is that who's leaving the team. So, Zorko and Rich were out and then he debuted. Zorko's come back in, he's kept his spot. When Rich comes back in, what happens? Because Wilmot then probably goes, instead of helping out with the halfback flank or whatever he's been doing, Harry Sharp's the next one. And then you look at outside of him as well for job security purposes, even if they do a bit of a shake as well. Jared Lyons had 28 touches and a goal, I think, in the VFL, 27 touches and a goal as well for Robertson. There's a lot of pressure coming outside, and all it takes is for Lions to lose one game. If the Brisbane Lions lose any game, they go, straight away, guaranteed he's out of the team. With their reshuffle, they'll go, experience comes in, Robertson or Lyons comes into that team, and he'll probably be one of the first ones out.
Not to mention that he's at any time a sub risk.
Yes.
So, which is going to kill you.
Although he's super fit though, so I don't know if they'd sub him over someone else. Like an extra.
No, not subbing out. To be the sub.
To be. Oh yes, 100%. Yeah.
So that's the issue. Yeah.
Yep. So he was my preseason prediction of if you could have a sub, it suits him to a T.
Yeah.
Not one of these other players.
As a Brisbane fan, are you saying it's a no for you? Or are you saying
I've been wrong a couple of times this year, and they just keep on doing well. If he's named and you need someone, sure, you can go him. But again, it's that flip a coin. I'm not picking him.
Can we also say then this?
You say Brisbane fan. I've got the D's jumper on tonight.
Yeah. Well, it's the problem. Oh, sorry. I should. It's all team dependent, right? If you can take a risk on it, then fine. If you can afford having a dead rookie on your bench, then fine. But a lot of people can't. Now, the good news is we hopefully can get back Johnson this week. There's fingers crossed that he just comes straight back into the 22, though I think he probably will have at least 1 or 2 games in the VFL. But the coach spoke very
they're
highly
winning
of him.
Too. They're winning,
and that's
now
the thing.
too.
Yeah, they had a big game, and Erasmus played really well. Who's probably the guy?
He's been very good. He's been 70s, 2 70s in a row. Erasmus.
Yeah. So are you? If you're bringing him in, I think he's mid only, isn't he? He's not mid forward. Yeah, mid only. So is he going to be
Sharp? Midfielder. Yep.
Yeah, so he doesn't have the benefit of DPP. Even he could really just stink up the bench for the rest of the year. Could be another dead rookie. So that's fine if you consider them 11 for you, and it's not going to matter. But most of us have Matty Roberts. Most of us have Johnson. That's obviously still not playing. Who are the other ones? People who bought in Drury. He's almost going to be a dead rookie, right? So,
Shout out to JP and myself with Sin tearing up the bench all year. He played and had a whole 10 touches, I think, in the sample. So that's great news.
I saw a team with Yulan still the other day. I was like, wow, okay, that's so. If your team's not like that and you got plenty of cash gen, you just need to get in the cheapest possible rookie to free up cash. I think it's different. Then you can take the risk.
The other consideration is that a lot of people now have their dead rookies, the DPPs, in the midfield because you've got Ashcroft and at least a fairly good spread. Then your Roberts and like Roberts Constable. I've seen a lot of people, you can use them as a loophole, but ideally they're getting kind of pushed into that midfield as kind of like the 3 dead spot where you're using at least a couple, 2 out of the 3 dead spots in your midfield. So that's the issue as well, I think, where you might have Baker or someone still on that midfield bench, but then outside of that, it's like, yes, you could push someone somewhere else, but then you've got double dead rookies in your forward line or double dead rookies in your defense. So I think a lot of people's midfields are already pretty strapped as far as dead rookies.
Yeah, one of the things that's really held my bench intact is the ability to change pretty much every week where they're all positioned, and it's enabled me to get the right rookies on the bench in the right spots to potentially loophole. The last 2 weeks have been shit for loopholing. Last week and this week have been shit for loopholing. But having him mid only means that you can't do any of that, and that so yeah, I don't even even Weddle, he's defender only. He's just got to sit there. Whereas every other defender I've got's defender mid or defender forward. I can switch them all around. Look, again, as I said, team depend. I wouldn't say don't bring him in, and if your team's structured the right way. But I would be saying to most people that are trying to play catch up or have really bad rookies already, that is a bad situation to put yourself in, personally. On the other hand, if Rich is due back this week, or is he due back next week? I think it's next week, isn't it?
No, it was 2 weeks. I think was the original call, but it depends on if he gets up. So he might be this week, but he's also had a few hammies as well. I was surprised they rushed Zorko back once the game was dusted. They subbed him out obviously on 100 Supercoach, but it'd be interesting to see team lineups as well.
Yeah, so I mean, if he's named with Rich, that gives you a little bit of confidence. I'm not sure how much, but a little confidence to say that immediate job security is not too bad. But anyway, so moving on. So the other ones is Tom Berry. Second game for the Gold Coast. Scored a 48. He's averaging 53 across the 2 games, negative 34 break even. I suppose what we note there is what we said last week on the pod, so that doesn't really change in that Ainsworth and Holman didn't come back last week. They both failed their fitness tests again. So they're both again a chance to come back this week. So he's just on borrowed time. Like, to me, as soon as those guys come back, he's gone. So is that this week? Is that next week? Whatever it is, I just don't think there's enough job security in the immediate term to be like, okay, I'm going to bring him in. He's going to make me $100,000, and then I could at least make $100K out of him. I just don't think that that's a thing. So for me, as a complete blanket no at all. But do you guys have a different opinion to that, or?
No, some fruits are poisonous. Just don't go there. I think that's
Swizz?
Yeah. You said it 100%.
Yeah. No, nothing else to add.
Which brings us to, so I'll go through Drury first. So obviously Drury with that 17 in his system, he still has a negative 10 break even. So it's not like it's completely dead. But what we can say is that you can wait a week. So if you didn't grab him, you don't have to get him. And that's, I suppose, the benefit is that even if he goes, let's say 50, he's only going to go up, say 20, 25K, and he's going to be, less than 130. And so he's still going to be a potential downgrade next week. So he probably retains his spot, not because he played well, but because they've had so many injuries. And we get another week to look at him. I just don't think it's really worth bringing him in on the unknown factor of his scoring potential, job security, etc. I really want another week personally. So I wouldn't be bringing him in at his price. I just don't think it's really worth it based on what we've seen so far. But what's your guys' opinion on the Drury factor?
I think you've got to wait. I think North Melbourne, big chance that they change up their lineups this week. We've already talked about the Hall and Thomas and Wardlaw. So how which are the ones that end up getting cut? We know they want to play kids, but at the same time they've shown a tendency to actually give some of these senior guys a game. So I think with the performances that they've been having, it would not surprise me if Drury's either the sub or even left out this week.
Yeah, I think it's kind of like if you're like a slow leak is what they're after. And if there's too much water going out of the boat, they'll just throw some experience in to kind of plug the holes because it's not good PR. Mm-hmm. You're not selling a good message if you're getting flogged and it, you know, you kind of go, hey, let's play the kids. And if they hold up and they do well, it's like, yeah, awesome. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, it's too much. And then you go, okay, well, let's just give you a break, go get some confidence. We'll bring some senior guys in to do the role and provide some stability, provide some confidence that, you know, to slow the leak. And I think that's where they're going to come in at this point. So North have been very, very uncompetitive, I think, the last couple of weeks. So it wouldn't surprise me if they try and go, yep, haul back in. And, you know, even Taron Thomas, if they give him a gig, just play him in the forward line. Give them something. Just provide something. Give a lead up. Give some X factor. Do something. Cunnington, who got dropped as a message, interesting. So I think he'll come back in and play probably some of the LDU minutes and put him in the midfield a little bit, try and get some contests and pretty much put the pressure on him. Say, mate, that's your job. You need to go in, get the clearance, get the contest, get the hard ball. Otherwise, if you don't do your job, we can't play you anywhere else and you'll get subbed again.
Yep.
So, yeah, Drury, yeah, I think I like him for freeing up cash, but I think, Chris, your point is probably too sensible where you can just wait a week and he's not going to burn you.
Yeah. So now we can look at guys that have played a little bit and outside of obviously Humphrey that you could potentially look at as downgrade targets. So the first one I want to talk about is obviously Josh Weddle. Obviously he was on the bubble last week, but at 168K, if you didn't pick him up, you could potentially still look at getting him in. I thought he was brilliant. Used the ball extremely well. Was playing a little bit more halfback as opposed to lockdown or centre halfback last week. Got up around 50 for a goal on the run from outside 50, so obviously can use the ball. Kind of looks like the way he runs and the patterns he runs, kind of a little bit more like a winger rather than a halfback flanker. So I'm not sure if, you know, we did see that in the preseason where he played a little bit more wing. So there's a potential that he can, you know, play a little bit further up the ground. Not sure that helps his scoring potential or not. But I think for the immediate future, he's got good job security. I don't know how long that lasts. I mean, there's a bit of a rotating door there, but yeah, both Mitchell and him were talked about after the game by Sam Mitchell. So I think he's got immediate, you know, good job security, but he's probably like any rookie at this point in that if he has a bad game, he's got the potential to be dropped. So there's that. But you could do worse than grabbing him at 168K because I think at least he plays also. If he plays, he's got to play the round 15 buy. Obviously, the round 14 one he doesn't, which is another one of the bad buys, but does play the round 15 one. What did you guys watch the Hawthorn game and what do you think about Weddle?
Yeah, mate. Ben?
I didn't watch the game, but Weddle was better definitely the recommended one I had instead of Atkins, which Atkins did scrape ahead with a very good second half. So that was lucky for the owners that pretty much were about to shoot their feet at halftime with a 15 Supercoach. Look, I liked the commentary about him where he was the one actually looking to take it on, the dare, the one to try and break lines and take the game on. Now, yes, he did butcher it a couple of times and turn it over, but I think that caliber and that type of person that can actually try and break lines and move them forward is what they need going forward. Now, my consideration is I've said a couple of times already, I'm like, they have some highly quality players on the bench. People who aren't even getting a game, people that are, it's quite even again between that 15 to 35 or whatever Sam Mitchell said. And Scrimshaw, for whatever reasons, on their shit heap. So, look, I think if you're going for the number one draft pick and West Coast are making it very hard, I'd be like, cool, well, Scrimmy, mate, just you now need to play your role and you need to actually force someone out because we're going for youth and we're giving them experience. And yeah, I think, I don't mind him.
The big thing from the game, because the first half was just an absolute one-sided affair, but the Hawks kicked 5 out of 7 goals after half time. In the first, I think it's about the first 16 minutes of the third quarter. And
they brought the pressure rating huge.
And pressure rating was huge, and Weddle was very much involved in a couple of those plays. He even kicked a really nice goal. So, I think that's the sort of thing, unless the only thing that could backfire Sam Mitchell goes, hey, and you're doing too well. We want Harley Reid here. But I think, if you're looking at putting time for the future, the fact that Weddle and Mitchell got involved in those moments, you're not going to get a better opportunity against probably the best team in the comp, and they put their hand up and said, we can fire the shots for Hawthorn, so which they did. So I think job security for both of them was very much shored up for their performance against Melbourne.
How many Hawks do you think are going to carry a niggle this week and get managed? Like big Mitchell, forward Mitchell, was it Mitchell Lewis? Managed few games back in. Yeah, mate, just, Tasmania, long trip, rest your body up. I honestly wonder
play
how
the kids.
How can they
play Will Day?
Yeah, play all the kids. How are they going to lose it? How can they lose this? I honestly wonder, because I'm sure they want to win, but for the number one pick, I mean, how do you lose this?
This is
Tasmania.
The thing. And you ever listen to any of the feedback from Melbourne back in that day with that, in particular, not the Cruiser Cup, but the Richmond Melbourne game is the one where Geordie McMahon kicks the goal after the siren, and they had some of the weirdest matchups. Like even you hear like Nathan Brown talk about this, where he had like the backup ruckman playing on him and Brownie's playing full forward, and the weirdest matchups going.
It's just a little bit like when Sicily goes off the ground, with 5 minutes to go.
But from the players' point of view, when they run out, they want to keep winning. Now, outside of maybe Sicily, who's captain long term is going to be there, maybe Will Day, who get the idea of probably bringing in the young fella, or everybody else running out there wants to win. So, can this fracture your club's culture and everything you stand by more if Sam Mitchell starts pulling all these strings? Like, it's easier to leave the guys out. But if Sicily lines up at full forward, hypothetically, and there's just all these players out of position, and is that going to do more damage for the club than what by getting Harley Reid in, as good of a player as he is?
So Mitchell Lewis managed, Green not back in, Sicily forward.
Yeah, that's the only way they can do it, is by leaving guys out. They can't be putting these guys in weird positions and stuff, and the thing is, West Coast are rubbish. Like, they generally, I've been on about this for 2 years, and
Sicily might play forward because he doesn't have a matchup, because Darling's out. He's fractured his arm.
They can probably get away with that, but still, you can't sit there and say your best backman and go, we're playing in full forward, because it just stinks of tanking. And the other point is they've still got to play North Melbourne later in the year. So they've actually got another very winnable game. And I think West Coast play North. So I think they all still have to play each other once. So there's no guarantees that it works out that way. But yeah, West Coast, I think, are much worse than what Hawthorn are.
You reckon West Coast would get Reid at number one?
I think and I know this is not the natural Supercoach talk, but it probably is my one word here talking about this. But yeah, I think what will end up happening. Well, firstly, I don't know about Harley Reid's go home factor, because I don't think that's the situation, but West Coast have definitely shown that they're happy to trade back if it means getting Western Australians, like they did last year with Ruben Jimby and Hewitt coming in. So they're definitely open to those ideas, but it's going to be for the right trade. And I believe Essendon, and this is where the rumor about maybe Parrish goes, because I believe the Bombers have 2 first-round picks already, like their own and one from last year. So if they were to able to move on Parrish, there's 3 first-round picks get it done, because I know Melbourne have 3 first-round picks, and they're trying to already talk to clubs about who are up that end, being North Melbourne, Hawthorn, and West Coast about it. But their picks are way much higher. So there's definitely interest from the Melbourne clubs about Reid. And I think if it was West Coast, they might look to trade back. But naturally, Hawthorn.
Hawthorn and North would take him.
Would take him in a heartbeat. Even though a couple of their supporters today go, we've got plenty of midfielders and that. But you don't have Harley Reid. Like this.
Well, Harley Reid can play defense. He can play midfield. He can play forward. He can play anywhere.
Anywhere. The other day.
Let's wrap up the Reid talk. No one cares. It's next
year.
They do. People care. This is influencing this
week. 38 minutes. We haven't got onto the premium, so we've got 21 minutes before Ben.
From a Supercoach perspective, Chris, this game's going to be bizarre.
I've got whiskey now, Chris. It's fine.
Like you might be on fire this week with Ruben Jimby holding him.
Yeah, mate. That's why I hold him.
Friggin' massive, mate. Yeah, this is the game. This is the reason.
All right. So, anyone have a good first round out there? So Wagner, I think we're still waiting on, and a few others. Nothing really relevant even for next week.
Yeah, there's a couple more. So Francis Evans is one that hit a 64 this week, and he's 145k forward. He was the sub twice in his first 2 games. So round 1 against Brisbane, he was the sub, and then round 8 against Essendon was the sub. So round 1, he got a 6. Round 8, he got 27. And he pumped out a 64 this week with his first full-time game. He is a small forward, of course, but there is one of also you can throw one on. But obviously,
is he number 3?
Number 3, my lord.
Number 3, my lord. Does he wear number 3?
Yeah. So look, I probably wouldn't. Again, small forwards, play support. Don't know what his job security is like at all. Don't love it, but he's there, and he's at 145k. So there's that. There's also, if you missed on Nevitt and you're happy paying up, then he's still there because he looked very good this week and scored another 70 score. So
job security hasn't changed there, but
no,
they literally have guys coming back to play that role as good as he looked. I was talking to a couple of Geelong supporters near me when I wasn't giving it to them, and they were, and they thought, he definitely is somebody who deserved it more of an opportunity. But with the listed players, and that's not your Dangerfields, but you're talking about your Gary Rowans. As much as his form hasn't been great, comes back in. Stengel comes back in. Brad Close this week. So they've got so many players that play that role. And Nevitt's playing that sort of lead up half forward flanker. How does he keep his spot? Like he maybe goes back as the sub, but the job security hasn't changed there.
Well, 12 points over Holmes. Maybe Holmes can fuck off, Swizz. maybe Nevitt can keep his spot.
I don't think Geelong picked up any other injuries out of that game that were notable.
Just their egos.
It was only Dempsey that was subbed off, which he's the obvious one that comes out first, but.
I hope you said subbed off.
That is one. Jordan Clark. I know he only played what he ended up playing like 10 minutes or something, but he looked exceptional when he came on. So I wouldn't be surprised if they start him this week.
All right. That's
it. Move on, premiums.
Moving on.
Can we go on to the injury carnage and quickly summarize the main injuries there? So Luke, let's straight up. So Luke Davies-Uniacke was it hamstring? So he's out for the short term. Is that right, Chris? I
think
short term. Yeah,
so a normal hamstring is a 3 to 4 week injury. So it doesn't matter. That's I kind of guess short term. Which is probably good because he's also battling that heel and calf that he did earlier in the year, so he probably does need a rest anyway. He's a trade. Any hamstring injury is a trade. It's a 3 to 4 week injury.
Yep. So Mills did a calf, which I thought would only be short term, but it turns out it's a moderate calf tear, so he's out for 4 to 6 weeks. So that's a huge blow for those who looked at him. Also makes it really hard now to try and target because a lot of people are like, Mills for 420k, but then you go, okay, well, 10, 11, 12, 13, plus then 2 rounds for him to drop cash, at least 14, 15, 16, 17. He might be like round 17 by the time he drops, and by that point, your team's already filled. So it gets really hard now, unless you're trying to grab like a Kennedy or one of these cheaper players that you hope to maybe he might get up to 500 or 450, and then you can, make cash and fix him later. It's going to be really hard to also bring him in. So Mills, a huge issue if you just brought him in like some of the top 1,000 did, or anyone that listened to Chris's podcast, he owes you a beer. So yeah, definitely he is also another trade because of A, he's missing a large chunk of time, but B, also dropping heaps of cash when he comes back as well. Hopper, was it you said he's out for, is it how many, 4 weeks, Chris, or something?
Yeah, 4.
6. No, 4 to 6. Sorry,
4 to 6. 4 to 6.
They said medium term. He's actually got a fairly serious knee problem. So
that's unlike Hopper.
And Steele, was released. Information was just released as well. They said he's got something wrong in his knee, so it's actually worse than they initially thought. However, they still think he may get up this week, but it's a wait and see test later in the week.
I think sounds horrible.
It's a medial strain, I think they said. I did read it before. I can't bring it up now, but so he might play, he might not. Good luck. And I think they play Sunday, don't they?
Off the top of my head. Yeah, I think they do.
Yeah,
that hurts.
It could be a laid out. Jack Steele.
Generally, like you go through the list of players that we mentioned last week, and like number 1 and 2 was like, if you want a cheaper option, it's Steele or Mills. And bang, both of them done.
Who would have thought Brayshaw would have been the best one, even though he only got an 88? At least
Anderson 88. Hey. Don't even bring up Holmes in this scenario, Swizz.
Right.
You're better than that.
So I think that's it from the injury front or relevant injury front. Is that correct?
Sinclair sputtered.
Did you say LDU?
Dawson sputtered.
Yeah.
Laird was taken off.
Laird
with,
but that's fine though. He had. They said he's fine just because the game was done.
And he got a nasty one in the ribs.
What it does mean though is that we have a bit of an issue this week in that a lot of the potential trade-in targets have high break evens because they've either had a really bad game or they were injured or subbed, or they're no longer with us. So in defense, and so I suppose we
In the
we start.
DPPs coming in 2 weeks, that's causing a stall on
Yes,
some of
that's
those
also
as
true.
well. I mean, Goulden, so Mills out. Goulden's now going to go to the moon, and against North particularly, his CBAs I got for sure. But to touch on quickly, so I think Gawn and Walsh are still looking highly likely for the DPP. So the forward line, so that's definitely one to look at. McRae is now 0.1% off, I believe, getting a forward status. Extremely close. Bevo's just doing classic Bevo as far as the flicking the magnets there.
Just quickly on that though. So with McRae, he's doing that, but he's also average. Like he's got a 3-game average of 88. And he's averaging 101 for the year. So yeah, he's a top 10 forward. He's also one of the most expensive forwards. I'm not exactly sure you'd want to get him if there's going to be like this, like 9% CBAs. Like, nah, I'm not paying 550k
It'll
for a
change.
McRae that
It'll
averages
change
88.
though. It'll change.
Do you know what'll
It'll
happen too? He'll give McRae. Is it this week or the following week? Because you could see him giving McRae just enough to miss out.
Yeah, just to
Beveridge
exactly
will have
right.
those stats there. It'd be like, stuff it. It's not happening.
Hate those fantasy footy players.
Only I get to tell people where they play. You don't get to decide. And then flicks it around. So yeah.
Yeah, so I think Walsh and Gawn are obviously the ones that are relevant there. But again, even with Walsh, like obviously he's probably more relevant, but he's not averaging like through the roof. You know what I mean? Like he's averaging kind of what he's priced at, which is what, like 110 is 615k. Like I guess you
think he's
pay 615k for a forward.
Like, I think he's been going like 115 probably the last few weeks, but since his first game. So
I still expect
he's
will start to get more.
Guy.
He'll start to get some more CBAs at some point as well. I don't think they play the whole season with him playing that forward.
Dude, they did for most of last year, didn't they?
Yeah,
like,
they did.
Most of last year, Walsh played that same role.
But he's still a 115 guy.
But he wasn't a forward eligible player.
Yeah, that's the thing.
No, because he was close last year. I think he just was like 30%ish. I think he's had more this year. And probably because he's coming back from injury, right? So they just, okay, we're going to have you more forward than we are mid to start the season.
Well, at what point do they just say, hey, what's the point in having someone that good to kick it into forward 50 if they can't bloody kick straight anyway?
So what they do, Ben, is so Walsh starts up on the half forward flank and he just sprints in straight away. And he gets the first handball usually out there. So he's got a 5-round average of 115. So you're paying for what he is, but then you're going to have a forward who's probably the number one forward.
Yep. I like him. Chris can get stuffed.
It's hard to ignore a forward that averages 115.
Oh, look, I just don't think it's worth really like holding your forward line because of it. Like, why? Like, I mean, to me, and I suppose this is a good segue. Like, would you rather him or Darcy Cameron for 120k cheaper?
No, I'm getting Darcy Cameron anyway, but I think
that's a lot of people say last position in their forward line, right?
Yeah, but a few people still have Zeeble, Sheasel sitting in their forward line. So if you're in that boat where you can swing one back,
I've only got 2 spots. One's for Gawn coming in from the ruck line, and the other one I'm kind of hoping maybe Walshy boy. So that's me, Chris.
They're just because of the way they're averaging this year with a couple of these forwards and defenders, there is food for thought to play one of the dual position players in your midfield. Because the midfielders have been awful.
Well, the problem,
midfielders.
Yeah, and that which is true, and so I'm actually looking at doing that, and especially over the next few weeks to try and even things up. But with Walsh, he also has the worst buy, so he's got the last buy. Yeah. So even if you wanted to buy flip to him, you can't. So there's just not. It's so hard to plan around having Sam Walsh. The one way you could do it is say if you're in my position where you have LDU, so you've got to trade out LDU. He's already got that back buy, so you're already planning for that person. Then it's not going to impact your buy structure at all. But if you're planning to bring him in on top of your, say, already 7 or 8 to guys, the premiums that you have in that back buy, that's a real hard thing to do.
Haven't you heard, Chris? I'm going for league wins now.
Yeah.
Well, that's another consideration. So yeah, DCAM is one I just wanted. We just briefly touched on there, but it is probably going to be my trade in, one of my trade-ins this week. And part of the reason is that there really isn't much else to go to. So especially in that sort of 2 weeks ago, I was looking at getting Mills for 520, Steele for 520, Brayshaw was in the mix. There's all these guys that are around that 520k mark, And I was like, okay, I'm going to get 2 of these guys, and they've got to have the early buy. It's going to set me up, blah, blah, blah. Mills goes down, Steele's like potentially not even playing this week. He's had an 84 because he got subbed out at 3/4 time. His break even shot back up to 120. So like, even if I wanted to bring him in, like I don't need to bring him in this week.
Sinclair similarly has a higher break even now. Looks like he's actually dropping to 500 flat or less.
Exactly right. So there's all these guys that's like, so let's say you're not in my position, and the average Joe out there, they probably don't have Dawson, but you can't bring him in now because he just dropped a 90 and his score's coming down. Laird dropped to 90, his score's still coming down. I think Laird still has a break even of 150 and he's priced like 590, so he's going to be like 570 in a week or two. Even Lockie Neal still got a break even of say 150. He's at 570. He's going to be down to 550. Like all these guys that you could potentially bring in are dropping cash. So like you don't want to bring those guys in right now when cash is such a premium and such a highly sought after. Similarly, do you really want to go and spend 620K, 630K on someone like Petraka? I don't even know what he's priced at. Who's just had 3 ridiculous spike games when we know he's a flat track bully and he's now coming into a harder run? I probably wouldn't do that. Walsh, as we said, we've already discussed him.
Rolled his ankle late in the game. I know they say he probably gets up, but still, it's a little bit of a concern.
Noah Anderson. So we obviously know that the issues that present with Noah Anderson now. He obviously was tagged. He dropped an 88. This week is fine for his break even, but next week that 189 rolls out of his cycle, so then he starts to drop cash again. Who else is up 600 plus? I think. So the only other one is Sarong. He dropped a 106 or 107 or something like that. Sarong this week. What did he end up dropping?
I thought he went.
But he's one that I'd actually consider.
He went 120, Chris.
Money.
Yeah,
120.
120. Yep. So even his last. Yeah, so I think his last 5-round average 122, 3-round average of 111. So he did have a lower score, I think, the last 2 weeks.
Yeah, so that's one that I would look at.
He's only had one game under 100, and that was round 1.
Yeah. Sicily's another one that I'd obviously look at. He had a 134 again. Buy dependent, of course, because those defenders do share that round 14 buy quite frequently. Obviously, coming up against West Coast, is he going to play? What's going to happen there? That's a conjecture as well. But because he dropped that low score, I think 2 weeks ago, he hasn't shot up that much in price. He's still only 546, and his break even is 114. So again, you don't have to bring him in this week, but he could be one that you bring in at his price. He's still going to be a decent player for the rest of the season. Sinclair obviously dropped to 65, so he's coming down. You probably don't need to jump on him. So who is the guys you bring in? That sort of leaves me with, okay, well, Darcy Cameron on the opposite end. So Craig McRae already said in his post-game presser that he will be coming in this week. He's basically been going through match sim. He's been going through everything in training. He's basically ready to go. They just wanted to hold him back another week. What was awesome is that we saw the Mason Cox show on the weekend, and I don't know if you guys watched the Pies game, but wow. Mason Cox was ridiculous.
Aren't you concerned with Cameron then on how good Cox was?
No, because Cox, he was playing very good forward.
Once a year, mate.
Yeah. So what I do think will happen with Darcy Cameron is what happened and what we have already seen happen this season, which was in the 2 practice games. So that he had basically had a 2-game run in where I think the split was like 45% Darcy Cameron, 55% Cox. They just sort of let Darcy Cameron catch up, get his eye in before throwing him back into 70-30 ruck split, which is what was happening further down. So I do think that the first couple of weeks he goes a little bit less. What does that look like? Probably somewhere between 80 to 100 scores those 2 weeks. But then that 3rd week, he has West Coast. And I do think that is the gradual progression towards him being the number 1 ruck again. Where he's obviously averaged 110 over the 3 games, but one of those was an 89 where he got subbed out of 3/4 time and got injured. One of them was a 139 against, who was that ruckman that week? Let me pull up
the Richmond game when he got injured.
Yeah. So was Nank in that game, or was it
Nank?
Did he get injured that game?
Oh, that's a great question. There's a feeling like Nank didn't play, but
and then the first game, I think
he must have. Nank. sure Nang did play. Yeah, Nang did play. Yeah.
Yep. So, he's not obviously he doesn't really hold scores, but he's a good ruckman in his own right. So, I think personally, what does he go? Probably 105, maybe 110 in an absolute stretch. Therefore, he would be absolutely guaranteed top 10. And 105 would make him a top 6 forward right now anyway. So I don't hate that as a plan. Now, for me, I already have Max Gawn as well. So it kind of locks me out of a few things. First of all, locks me out of a forward unless I trade, say, a Zeeble back, like we already mentioned, but I've already got 6 defenders. So I'd be flipping other guys out to try and get that to work if that was something I'd do. It also cancels me out of getting English. And I guess I've sort of just come to the realization that I'm not paying 600K for English. I don't think that's a really wise move. He's dropped two of the 3 scores in the last 3 weeks have been really poor. I'm kind of fine just running Gorn and trying to catch up elsewhere in my team and not spending extra money. However, if one of those guys goes down, I could look at bringing English in. I just think at some point English gets injured, and I don't want to be on the wrong side of that where I've traded him in, then 2 weeks later he gets injured, and then there it goes. So yeah, I don't mind Darcy Cameron. I think he's going to be all right, but don't expect it from this week to be absolutely lights out. I think he builds into it. And so therefore, if you do want to wait, you're more than welcome to, but he does have a break even of 55. So even an 80 score will see him go up 25K. And then you're not going to be priced out, but he's definitely going to be more expensive. So if cash is an absolute premium in your team and you're running low on cash, then which is what I'm looking at. I just kind of need to get a cheap option in. And he's the only guy sub 500K that I'm looking at. So
only guys sub 500. So no love for Kennedy, no love for Wines.
I think those guys are they're hero moves. It's like if your team is so shit that you need to kind of like jump on a pick to just sort of boost you up, a little bit like Himmelberg was last year, right? Like, fuck, I just got to get Himmelberg because I got no cash. I need to make an upgrade, and this is the best of a bad situation. Then sure, like it can pay off. It can pay off big, and then you make 150K, 200K while he scoring hundreds. Great, but it's not a move that guys in the 1% I think are going to benefit from. I think it's more, your low ranked guys that you're trying to get a boost on the other guys in the competition. Does that make sense?
I think JP will be saying, how dare you say the bottom ranked players with Himmelberg? He won the competition, Chris, with such ballsy moves like that. You can't even see his balls. They're that hefty. You can't, no respect.
We had a great chat about it. And that was the funny thing you saw. People would have seen us tweeting about this because we were playing cricket out in the absolute farmyards out at Cranbourne West. And there was we were having a bit of a chat. And he's turned to me and gone, yeah, I'm looking at Kennedy. His price, his role's improving. There was literally one cow near us. And then all of a sudden, Abdul's tweeting all about the exact conversation, like word for word, what JP and I just talked about. So,
did you tell him that you were basically internal affairs? You're just passing off all of his good content?
He's got cows wide listening in for conversations about Supercoach.
Sorry, I'm laughing because my beautiful fiance, she's just decided to come out and cook us dinner, but she realizes that I'm podcasting, so she's just like pulling things out of the freezer like as quietly as she possibly can, and it's just going. You're right, honey.
I would the way I'd consider it, because what are we talking about? Wines? What's 420? 420?
Yeah, 420. Like Kennedy's about 350, I think.
So there is potential. Like if you said had Wilmot and maybe another rookie that you've got sitting there that needs to be culled, say Chandler, for example, and you had a little bit of cash, there's potential that you could bring both of them in, and going down the track, they could become like an M8, M9 situation that you could loophole going forward. And that is.
Do you
definitely...
not feel like the problem that the current mids are is that they're all fucking M8 worthy caliber players?
Well, that is a bit of the problem, but it does give you a little bit of flexibility there as the season. And we always end up in that situation where we can usually have somebody on our bench to loophole. So that they could be options.
The thing I don't mind with it in one part is that if you do have someone like that hopefully scores you well, makes some cash, etc. Callum Mills, after the buys, you've still got someone that carries you through the buys, except Kennedy obviously has the bad buy, as Chris alluded to with Walsh. but you might be able to then go him down to, say, a Mills, especially for your final series in your leagues or whatever you're playing in. That could be a really nice point of difference, and you might actually make a little bit of cash in that process. The other one with Wines is he increased his time to 79% time on ground with the majority CBAs for Port, which I think is a change that has been slowly coming. He's had basically a 9-week preseason now. He had no preseason, as we already knew. 420K, he's someone again, so someone who might be strapped with cash and missed out on some of those options. I know for me, I can actually turn Hopper and I can turn Chandler into Darcy Cameron and into a Kennedy. So turning, because my issue, unlike Chris has been trading all of his bench rookies. I've been upgrading my premiums on field, but then playing rookie roulette because I couldn't afford to trade the guys on the bench. So Chris is in a really good situation where he's been upgrading on his bench, but having good players on field. I've been kind of forced to try and improve my premiums on field, but then play rookie roulette, which has kind of hurt recently. So if I want to get someone, if you're in my situation, you go, hey, maybe I'm better off having a Kennedy and a Cameron instead of playing like a Filippo or a Sincotta or one of these other, Chincotta on the field, etc.
Yeah, there's considerations, and I just had a look at Wine's stats. So he's last 3 weeks he's gone up in terms of his CBAs, and it's gone. And I'm just pulling it up here. He went 33%, 52%, 70%. So 70% is serviceable enough, because if you look at his career averages, last year he had 71%, and he turned over 105.5 average over the year. So with 70%, it sounds like that might be enough for him to be 100+ averaging mid. Let's look at the negatives, of course. So the problem is, again, he's got that bad buy. They've got a lot of midfielders in that group. So, they've got Drew, they've got who
Rosie,
completely
Butters.
dropped out. So look at the other guys that also had CBAs or lack of CBAs last week. And I go, okay, so does that hold then? And that's my issue. So I'm bringing up Port CBAs. So Connor Rosie had 64%. Horn
Butters
Francis had 58%. So he's dropped slightly. His season average is 60%. So he's been dropping a little bit. Butters had 61%. So that's pretty much par for where he's going at the moment. Drew dropped down he had 41%, dropped down to 36. And that's about it. So that basically what they've done to sort of facilitate this is everyone's taken a bit of a haircut in order for him to generate the higher amounts of CBAs. So yeah, I mean, does that hold is the other question, with the amount of mids that they have, and how does that look moving forward? So I
depends on the wax and the product they're using in that haircut you speak of, Chris. To be honest,
what's the level of hold?
Yeah, is it a medium hold? Is it a firm hold? I mean, what kind of shit are they using over there in Port Adelaide?
Yeah.
So
I don't.
Swizz, what are you using in your hair, mate?
Move,
a bit of spray.
Not a lot actually, but I get the idea of the Wines, and that, like, we know the guy can ton, and especially if they're against their weaker games or that, like, it's the sort of guy after this week when Richmond, Hawthorn, and then after the bye, sort of they've got the. But it's funny because I think they might have even played some of their easier games because they've already done North and West Coast, so that might hurt a little bit. But Port Adelaide at least be fighting for the pointy end of the season, so they'll want him up and firing on that run home. They do have their Supercoach finals is the Giants, Fremantle, Richmond, so that's not too bad for Port Adelaide, especially midfielders score pretty well against those sides.
Yeah,
interesting. Guys on the horizon there, Chris. So Zach Merritt, can we touch on him, because we were very big advocates for bringing him in for their soft draw, which is just about to start. I was a little surprised that he didn't tail up against Brisbane as much, although he was on, and a lot of Essendon players were huge scores in Supercoach for the first half of footy. I think Zach Merritt was on like 62, 66. Yeah, so it killed it in the first half. Setterfield was looking for a good score as well. And then that third quarter, Brisbane just pretty much turned it on. And Essendon just couldn't find the ball, to be honest. Couldn't get their hands on it.
Well, their next 6-7 weeks is a great run, and that's arguably why I wanted to bring him in. But also, so Essendon have Richmond, West Coast, North, Carlton, Freo, Port, and then Adelaide all in a row. And then they have Geelong, Western Bulldogs, Sydney, but then finish it up with West Coast North GWS before having Collingwood in the last round. So this is when you want to be on Essendon players, and of course Parrish is out, so that leaves Zach Merritt. So the main reason why people are looking at him is obviously two reasons. Obviously, he's been a back end season merchant for the last 4 or 5 years, where he does come good in the back end, and obviously their run and fixture. So we know what level he can score to. He could probably go on a run of 120 average. The issue is his role, and it's not necessarily Merritt himself, but it's what is happening at Essendon in terms of their mid setup, because every week it's changing, and there's no consistency with anyone outside of Parrish, who isn't even playing right now. So he's the only one that seems to be consistent. And then last week, I think Merritt basically had all of the CBAs in the first half, and then played forward in the second half. And then he only ended up with 62% CBA. So this week's split was 62% for Merritt, 62% for Setterfield, back up from 0% the week before. Shield back up to 67%. So he was actually the second highest mid, because out of nowhere, Jai Caldwell comes in and has 71% this week. Just like, what?
Well, that was,
and then Stringer's dropped to 38.
You're thinking first bounce, you're going to have your captain in there, and Merritt lines up inside 50. I'm like, what is going on here?
Stringer had a horrible
and then
game.
Hobbs had 0.
Yeah, Caldwell was very, very impressive. And I think Hobbs, outside of that CBA side, I thought Hobbs was actually quite strong. Outside of him trying to kick an inside-out ball out in the full, I thought Hobbs was actually quite a good player for them as well.
This is why because they're definitely a key back short, why the consideration of moving on Parrish, because they've actually got too many of those sort of inside, similar types, and can't get them in. And then they're playing them in roles which they're not comfortable playing.
Yeah, well, it's obviously killed Setterfield, and it's now killing Merritt, and I'm not happy about it, because I brought him in 3 weeks ago. Look, he probably still is a worthy target, but the only reason it is because all the other targets are shit. So it's like,
and he's durable. He's durable.
Yeah. So is he the best of a bad bunch? Absolutely. I would probably be bringing him in if I was everybody else, I am also confident in his ability to be able to at least go 105. But probably
I reckon
110.
I reckon 110 for 110, 115. Yep.
Yeah.
I reckon he's probably the best pick under 600K in the midfield.
Yeah. The problem is I already have him. So for me, trying to bring him in, I've actually sort of left with, I've got 600K to spend on a mid, and I'm like looking at every single one of them being like, I hate my life. Like, I'm not interested in any of you. So right now it looks like I'm bringing in Josh Kelly, because he's still 580K. He's actually the same price as what he started with. Obviously his fixture's not the best, but this is it. He's averaging 111 for the season. He probably averages somewhere between that and 120 for the rest of the season. So he's the premium mid under 600K that you can sort of, what you're going to get. So yeah, he's the only one.
But you don't have Laird. Laird's 595.
Yeah, but he's got a break even of like 140, and he's coming up against the Bulldogs.
How many spots do you have left?
And he's got a bad buy that I can't bring it into. So I already have 7. So my buy split is 4177. I'm trading out LDU, so I need to bring in a round 15 premium. So LDU's around 15. I need to bring in around 15, which is Josh Kelly, and that keeps my buy split even. If I brought in Laird, I would change that to 6 on the round 15 and 8 on the round 14, and I'd be screwed, especially considering a lot of my rookies are also round 14 rookies.
Okay, but he has the round 14 buy, yeah? So that would give you
8 premiums in the round 14. I'm even across 14 and 15 right now. So if I change one from 15 to 14, I go to 6 in 15 and 8 in 14, and I'm unbalanced. Does that make sense?
Don't confuse Ben.
I feel like you're
no, as in you're talking about dropping one from your round 15, but you've got LDU, so wouldn't you just go like LDU, which that was your round 15 rookie, right? So round 15 premium.
Yep.
Yeah, but with the amount of people that are going to be short anyway in round 15, wouldn't you rather the extra one in that one plus then, so with different rookies or other sideways you could do?
It's just shifting a problem. You're either going to go round 12, 13, or 15. Trading in around 14 doesn't help me in my situation, because then I've got to try and just cover an extra body in round 14. So if I have 8 in round 14, doesn't help me.
Oh, out, 8 out, you mean?
8 out. I already have
Oh, okay,
7
right,
out.
okay.
Yeah. So
I
I've
thought
got
you
a
meant
lot of
like
round
you only
14
had
guys.
8 premiums, and I was like, dude, what's your fucking problem?
No.
I've only got 8 in round 14. I was like, what's your problem? Like,
Yeah.
yeah, easy.
So if I want Laird, I've got to wait till round 15, which I probably won't. And to be honest, I'm okay with that because he looks shit and he's injured. So like, why would I want to bring him in? I'm targeting round 12 guys, but we'll see how we go. At the moment, it looks like I'll bring in Kelly this week, and then
It's a step up for you, Chris. Normally, you only target about 8 guys at once.
So I was targeting Mills if he's off his injury, but now it won't be. So now it's going to be looks like Neil, obviously after round 12, and then Steele if he comes good, and then we'll see.
I did hear that Mills will be doing a lot of his recovery out on the farm, out in the paddock somewhere.
I don't get. Oh, because what Mills?
It's a mill joke, you dickhead.
Oh, good one.
Jesus.
Anyway, yeah. So I think that pretty much wraps up everything, right? Do we have anything? Do we have any premiums that we wanted to chat about? I think that's pretty much it.
The only other consideration is, we spoke last week, I guess.
Goulden
about
obviously is a very good trade in. While
yeah,
Mills
but
is out.
556K or whatever as well. That's
560.
It's a lot to pay though, isn't it?
Not when he's averaging 150.
He's on 156 last 2 weeks, and he is. The only issue is there's not many great captain options after him this week, but he is a great VC option.
Yeah.
Like,
all right, so let's chat about our
can a player
and
go?
So they're going north this week, bro. That's what I mean.
Can a player go 156 plus 3 weeks in a row? Like,
I think he.
Well,
can.
I don't have him. I was loving life when he dropped his low score.
North on a fast deck at Marvel, dude. Could be anything this week, honestly.
It could be, and that's why I know you were originally talking about maybe the Friday night game, and it's hard because unfortunately Bont's playing at the same time as Goulden, but so I'm really struggling to find a captain option after Goulden, but I want the VC on him.
Here's the other thing as well. Goulden has a break even of 7, so he will be 600K next week.
Yeah, 100%.
That's brutal.
Oh, now he's like, because someone traded him out, Swizz, I think.
Yeah, I got Oliver. I got Oliver with him, so that's fine.
Here we go.
That's true.
Oh yeah,
I've already a bunch of rookies, but I mean, you can get Oliver with the premium.
I did it with Setterfield, and you've done it with rookies. But hey, let's sideways the best forward premium.
He's not even the best forward.
Oh, he's kind of close,
was he third in line?
Yeah, he's 108. He's averaging 108.
Mate, give it this week.
Yeah.
This time next week he will be.
No,
yeah, right.
Yeah, he's not going over 114.
Well, he's 108 at the moment, mate. He's only going 6 points over Timmy.
He's fourth.
Even if he goes 150, he's only going up 5 average, so that's a 113. Still won't be the highest.
That's as long as Taranto.
That'll be second highest.
Yeah.
Maybe. If Dunkley doesn't fire. Anyway, that was part of my team podcast. I'm not going to go there, guys, because you won't listen to it anyway. But the reflection for me was, number one, don't bring in breakout premiums, aka Ridley. I was like, you're better off just going down to them, like Dacos, just paying and trading down. And then the other one was don't sell the farm. And that was me selling the farm to get Clary, who I thought was a must-have. And in the end, he wasn't a must-have. And the captaincies I was worried about. I know, but the captain I was worried about, I was like, hey, I need a captain option. And the captain I was worried about was Bontempelli. So
just on that quickly, buddy, you were completely right, by the way. And so I think you should deserve yourself a pat in the back. I don't know if you've noticed, but Clayton Oliver's CBAs have dropped.
They have? Oh, through the weaker teams, yeah?
Yeah. So against Richmond, weak team, 76%. Against North, 75%. And against Hawks, it was 75%. So his season average has dropped to 82%. So that's down, 5% on last season. So that's pretty much where we thought. Obviously, what have we also seen? He hasn't had that 200 game yet.
Yeah,
he's only had 150 score, and everything else has been 120 to 130.
This is the worry I was about to say about thinking Goulden. It scares me this week not having Clary VC because he had his massive game against the Swans. That was always going to be a tough game for them because at the time we thought Sydney, full strength, coming off that grand final last year, and he went huge. Port Adelaide, this is a big game for them. Petrarca on a bit of an injury cloud, so it's going to be all Clary in there. And I think
Clary gets tagged by Drew this week.
Well, that's what you would, but I still, it doesn't
he did
matter.
last year.
You can't tag Clary.
Or does Drew go to Petrarca?
Drew tagged him last year to a 68.
Be interesting to see which way it goes. I think Clary will just work his way through it.
Drew's too busy making minions for, mate.
I'm not VCing him.
No,
Drew's too busy making minions for.
But what I'm saying, I won't be VCing it. I'm going to Gordon, but watch Clary. This will be one of his massive games. I can see it happening.
I think the round 11 clash against Freo is absolutely going to be huge. I think that's his 200 game.
Yeah, so I feel like there's 150 coming this week because it's going to be a contested match.
Trying to talk yourselves up and trying to listen to your own thoughts that I even put that out there twice, ladies and gentlemen. And if you're at home and you've heard the pun twice, the Drew pun, no respect. You're too busy listening to your own voice and trying to speak your own words. How dare you?
I still don't know what he said.
Where you're
exactly.
I think you're the other way, Chris, thinking these Melbourne Rucks could get hold of Teakle.
Yeah, absolutely. So Gawn is my VC this week. So if you do have Gawn, I think that's an absolute Monty. I think he goes 140-ish.
Do you have Clary?
Yeah, I do now. Yeah.
Ooh.
But I won't be VCing Clary. No, not a chance. Not with that history. Not when they've already proven that Drew can work and go to him and be effective. There's no way that I will do it because that's pretty much guaranteed to happen this week.
The difference, last year Port weren't actually a top 8 side. This year they are, and Clary smashes top 8 sides.
But I would when would that happen? Because Port were very good on the run home. They just lost the first 5, didn't they, or 6?
Yeah. They weren't top 8,
and then they all of a sudden decided to play footy.
Weren't top 8. I mean, Richmond understand. Richmond finished 9th that time. Remember
last year they still went. Port.
I won't be VCing Clary. I'll be going.
The problem is with having Drew in there all day, is then you're taking out. So you got Wines, Butters, Rosie, Horn-Francis.
I know.
Yeah, I know. Are they going to try to win the game by locking down Melbourne, or are they going to try to win the game backing themselves in with their own structure?
No, Hinkley is. I think Hinkley knows when he's outmanned. Like Hinkley knows that Port are not as good as Melbourne. I think if you ask 100 people, ask 100 Port fans what they think, they will all say that Melbourne are a better team.
They'd rather win by an inch than a mile.
Yeah, winning is winning.
I'm looking forward to this game. I think it's gonna be an absolute crack.
Yeah, I think it'd be great Friday night footy, but I do think it gets tagged. I don't think that they can justify not tag him.
So I'm going Clary, so that makes it everyone VC Gawn because Chris is going that way. So look, I'm going the opposite way because I want to keep Chris's good form going and in fortune.
Thanks, mate.
Yeah, I feel like if I start listening to you, then I'm going to literally ruin your season. So I'm just going the other way.
And captain for me is just going to be Bont against Adelaide. I just think that he gets the Dawson matchup head to head. It's not going to be like a run with roll or anything like that. I think they just go head to head against each other. It's going to be who gets on top. That both of them could potentially go really well and really good scores. Just going Bont for safety purposes because I think a lot of people will have him. But yeah, don't mind that. I mean, there is quite a lot of captain options this week, to be completely fair. But yeah, I think.
Can you help me out with some because I'm actually the problem is the games at the same time. North Melbourne, Sydney, and Bulldogs Adelaide at the same time.
I also think Dacos probably towels up Carlton, to be honest.
Yeah, also.
Yeah, well, that's the one.
Depends if I think Curnow has a forward tag on Dacos, to be honest, because he was subbed last week. I think he comes into the team to play that role. So I probably wouldn't go Dacos, but Marshall against GWS.
That's the one I've got at the moment.
Yeah.
Marshall is my backup captain.
He's there.
Maybe Dunkley against the Suns.
Or, I mean, if you've got Anderson or Rowell, I would also look at those two because Brisbane, again, they're not going to tag.
They leak points in that midfield too.
Yeah. If you've got a Jeremy Cameron or a Hawkins versus Freo, I'd be looking at that. But
yeah, this is the problem. I feel like nearly all my players are playing in those first 3 games.
Keep it simple. Chronic. First 3 games, keep it simple. Yeah. It'll be Gawn, Clary, Bontempelli, or one of the Sydneys as a VC instead. So
yeah, that's right. It's just more the fact if you want to vice captain Bont or Goulden, the options get a bit
you're stuffed. Yeah. No, you're
better
off just taking that
that's what I want to
VC.
do. I want to VC Goulden. I don't want to have him as a captain, but I think he's potential.
Same time.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So you've got to have a backup option.
You got to go Clary.
I don't want to captain Goulden. I'll VC him.
Well, you're not going to go that far. Clary will go 135 and you'll just take it.
Yeah, that's why I'm VCing Goulden, because I feel like he's going 150.
I don't think anyone's getting past it. I mean, what's Bont's average at Mars?
McRae's the one
I
at
think
Mars.
it's pretty good.
Nah, McRae's the one that always towers up Mars.
When he used to play midfield, good times.
Yeah. Bont's probably good. But...
Hey, I remember when he was relevant and paying up 650K or 680K for that
That'd be
guy.
interesting, because the Crows got them there last year. And he didn't do that well. I think he only got an 80. No, his last two at Mars have been 88 and 87. So, okay. And even Bailey Smith, they asked him after the game. He's like, well, I hope it's not going to be too cold at Ballarat. It's literally the coldest place in Victoria. So if that's their kind of mind, and their attitude, maybe Bont isn't the player this week. I feel like it's just
Dawson
could be the one.
He could be one.
Or English could also be the one.
Yeah, well, considering Marshall got a hold of that is another shout. I mean, I don't have English, but Marshall obviously got a hold of Rob last week. He went 130 something, didn't he? What did he?
Yeah, Marshall was horrible. I mean, so Marshall killed Rob.
You're not going to have to worry, Chris.
Having said that, they started.
You got 100.
They started with Thilthorpe in the ruck.
Yeah,
and I think before Thilthorpe exchanged with Rob, I think he got a bit of a knee knock, and then went forward for the rest of the game. I think Marshall was already on like 30 by that stage in the first 10 minutes of the game. So, yeah.
Yeah, good shake. I don't mind that. Marshall now 110 average too. So for those that jumped off him at the low flat average that he had, good call.
Hey, it could be another one at Marvel, and this is hard because I want to obviously VC Goulden. Jack Zeeble this week. I feel like him under the roof at Marvel has just been absolutely toweling.
Yeah, I mean, he's not going to do a 170 every week, though.
He's not going to do that.
The thing is, he's safe for a 110 to 120 right now. So it's like, can I be bothered?
Yeah.
I'd
rather take Goulden.
Yeah.
Chris, I was just saying I might as well just pay you boys out now. Although I did give Swizz more money, so I should probably maybe call that one a day. What was the bet last week? I can't remember. I had a few drinks.
I think it was Sicily versus Day for the rest of the season, and I think you're up 50 points at the moment.
Yes, I honestly could not remember it.
Up.
I just remembered saying if they're subbed, it doesn't count. And you're like, they don't sub the premiums. And I was like, no, just putting that out there.
What were we crapping on about? Sicily versus you had somebody, and I was like, no, Sicily will out.
Sinclair maybe.
Yeah, it might have been.
I think I said Chris and I were both on Sinclair over Sicily.
But
I said Sicily was way better than Day at the price that they were paying.
Yeah, I should have. I should have jumped
on
that.
Good chat.
I
need to write that down. That means maybe I'll hold that 50 now. I gotta hold it, ladies and gentlemen. I couldn't remember. I just remember saying
Chris
something about a sub.
Or happen. We'll just take out the middleman, and Chris can just give me the money.
Nah, you can. I will take Chris's money, put it in a high deposit interest loan for 7 days or something, and then I'll give it to you after that.
To me.
That's how it works, isn't it?
That's right.
Any final thoughts here, boys? Any final?
Nah, I think that's pretty much rounds it all up, guys. But good chat. And
so trade outs, you've got Hopper, Chandler. I think also the other one, McKenna, probably needs to go as well, boys, if you still have him as well.
Free on all that.
Yeah, so if you have a boost, I'd probably triple it. Maybe but there's not many downgrades. Hey, who would you keep though then? Out of Chandler and out of say McKenna and Hopper.
That's why I went down.
Who are you getting rid of?
Cash up.
I'd probably keep McKenna because you probably have better loop options in defense.
And at least he's playing, and then Chandler's definitely dropping cash.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay. Higher price, higher drop. Okay.
Can't believe got rid of JVR instead of Chandler, which was the obvious move, but it was always going to happen.
Oh, always going to happen. At least you had him though, Swizz. Stop your bickering. Okay, so that is us for this week. Chris and Swizz, you're releasing your own team pod this week.
I'll record it tonight. Yeah, I'll jump on after dinner.
Chris is getting on tonight. Swizz, are you doing yours now or when teams are hitting?
I usually get in on after teams anyway to do Q&As and stuff like that. Yep. It'll either be Wednesday night or Thursday. I usually like to do mine I've got all the knowledge.
All right, there you go. So Thursday, keep up with those boys.
Yeah, Thursday jump on. I've been trying to get on for 8 p.m. and I know I don't have work this week on the Friday. Well, I have a late start Friday, so I should be able to go later. But I think we ended up being a 2-hour live pod with about 500 people end up jumping on, which was awesome. So if you want to just come on, throw your questions up, I can answer them live. Sometimes the boys jump in the chat, especially Benny. We had a few other, I think even Supercoach Mama, she was there. The Centre Bounce boys were there. So there was some good Supercoach people in that group chat. So yeah, feel free. I think we'll aim for 8 p.m, maybe even slightly earlier if I can. I'll put it out there. But yeah, if you any questions, and we can talk about teams, and it's a bit of fun.
Yeah, sounds good. I think even Damo from Jock Reynolds, I was chatting to him. I think he said you send him some messages and stuff. I said, mate, you got a Thursday night Q&A is pretty much where everyone, lets their hair out and talks about all the latest amount of information and trying to problem solve, because it is a mad scramble to finish to that finish line for that Friday night. And what a great Friday night it'll be. That's us then. I did do my team reveal. Obviously, it's been 2 weeks waiting. I've just put it out on the line as well.
Farmer has a good score, does a team reveal?
Oh, yeah. Well, you got to put one in every 2 weeks, even if it is shit. But look, Chris's will be up on the line anyway. I beat you once, Chris. Not in Supercoach, but I beat you by putting my team up first this week. So that's it from us. We'll talk to you soon. And just remember, final thoughts. Max Holmes is shit. We'll talk to you next time.
See.
Bye.